And so the front cover of Marca, extreme competition, and in the small print, it's the two players, Vini and Rodrygo, fighting for their place on the left wing. As we now welcome in Alex Kirkland, our Madrid correspondent, to talk more about this Vini-Rodrygo conundrum. How is it going to play out, Alex?
Well, I think the first thing it shows is that Xabi Alonso has the status, the authority, the personality to take this kind of decision. And this one, you have to say, it worked out. Started Rodrygo did pretty well. Vinny comes off the bench and scores and provides an assist as well. It's pretty much best case scenario. I mean, going forward, let's see. This is the situation right now, is that you've got two players there who are going to play on the left. That's Vini Jr.'s best position. It's where Rodrygo wants to play. Rodrygo told Xabi Alonso, I want to be considered on the left. I'm not comfortable on the right. I don't feel I'm at my best there. And so you've got these two options on the left wing, and it's not a bad situation in that sense for a coach to have two players of that caliber competing for one spot. Of course, the ideal is that they get kind of the best out of each other, and that competition is good for them. It's hard to see it working out in the long term, because ultimately these are two players of a caliber who are both going to want to be playing, if not every week, almost every week. But on the very limited evidence we've had so far, which is one game, the game at Oviedo, like I say, it went pretty well. I think in a way, Rodrygo, I sort of admire the fact that he sort of backed himself. He's gone to the coach that I want to play on the left-hand side. He knows that Vini Jr. is there, a player who, just a year ago was named either the best or the second best player in the world, depending on which award you pay attention to. And he's backing himself, despite that competition, to be able to get in the team and contribute. And like I say, I kind of respect that in a way.
What do you think?
Well, Alex, why has the Rodrygo, unless I've missed him, why is the Rodrygo situation taking a full 180? It seemed like he was on his way, he was not and all of a sudden he's sort of back in the mix. Is that because he's shown the attitude, or has Xabi Alonso changed his mind, or does nobody want to pay the money for him?
Yeah, I think it's both of those things, to be honest. I think the big thing is, as you say, where are the offers? That's been the question we've been asking all summer. Who was going to come in and offer the kind of deal in terms of whether it's a transfer fee, in terms of the wage package that Rodrygo and Real Madrid were willing to accept? There weren't many possible destinations. We've seen, City being talked about as a possible option, but if Savinho stays there, it looks like he is staying there. There's no space there for Rodrygo. We saw, Arsenal talked about as a possible option, but they've gone and brought in Eze, and there's no vacancy there either. So there are always, like I say, a limited number of places that Rodrygo could go. None of those clubs have come forward and made a concrete offer, and therefore he's here. And so I think Rodrygo has probably made the smart move, rather than being we've seen other players, haven't we? Someone like Isaac at Newcastle this summer, making a very public stand saying, I want to leave. Rodrygo hasn't done that. He's kind of kept his head down and he's worked hard, and he's been given a chance by Xabi Alonso. So I think it's just the circumstances, really. He's here. There isn't an offer that makes sense for him or for the club. And so unless that changes, he's going to be here. And if he's going to be here, let's try and get the best out of him.
There's still a lot to learn about this Real Madrid side, isn't there? Because, we know Barca, we know there's been less changes. The manager's been there, more continuity. But there's still a lot to learn about this Real Madrid side. They played Osasuna. Wasn't great. Mbappe scores a penalty. Osasuna really don't do any attacking. They had no desire really to take any sort of the game to Real Madrid. And then you play Real Oviedo, a team that were promoted, and it was an emotional day for the home crowd. But let's be honest, they're going to be one of the teams that are fighting relegation probably in La Liga. So they've got 2 wins, but there's an awful lot to learn about how much progress, if any, this team is going to make under Xabi Alonso, because the two teams have played. What we've learned, in a sense, is that he's not frightened to make decisions. That we absolutely know that. Would he drop Mbappe? That's a different kettle of fish. But I think Vinicius Jr. was a big enough target from Trent Alexander-Arnold was a big enough target for him. But I think there's a lot of work still to be done. Look, 6 points is good, but we're still very much in the learning process about how far, if at all, he's taken this Real Madrid side forward to put on, a legitimate title race with Barcelona, who are still no doubt the favourites to retain the title.
The odd thing for me with this Rodrygo situation, and I get it, Rodrygo wanting to back himself, I feel at times players kind of do that to their own detriment. Let's be honest, getting a nod against Oviedo, as Craig said, who will not be Real Madrid's sternest test during the course of this season, is one thing. But Vinicius Jr. is, I am willing to bet my mortgage on, is going to get the nod in the bigger games during the course of the season. Now, if you kind of, if Rodrygo kind of says, I want to play left or that's my preferred position, then you're going to find yourself on the bench for those big games. And what also, and what surprises me in Rodrygo not pushing a little harder for his own move, and I'm not saying doing an Alexander Isak, I'm not saying that at all, but kind of given where we are and given what's to come next year in the World Cup, and that they're both Brazilian, Rodrygo could be kind of scuppering his own chances of featuring for Carlo Ancelotti, somebody who also had that same problem and also lent Vinicius Jr. on that left-hand side. So for me, I certainly am surprised, and to Alex's point, as much as you see the Savinho deal, prospective transfer to Spurs not going through because Rodrygo, Manchester City haven't been able to tie up things with Rodrygo. I thought that a little surprising. I thought he'd be a little bit more kind of willing to bend.
So given that Craig did mention as well Trent Alexander-Arnold also being dropped against Oviedo and Carvajal getting the nod there, is it a similar situation, Alex?
Yeah, I don't think there's as much surprise about that here in Spain as perhaps there is outside of Spain. We shouldn't forget what an amazing player Dani Carvajal is, what a big, important character he is in the Real Madrid dressing room as well. Now, of course, he was out for most of last season with a very serious knee injury. We didn't know in exactly what condition he'd come back, but he's come back and he looks very, very good. And look, this was never going to be the case. Trent was kind of the guy in pole position because he played. Well, Carvajal wasn't fully fit in the Club World Cup, and he played the first game of the season. But this was never going to be Trent coming in and being automatic first choice, and Carvajal being relegated to the bench. It was always going to be competition for places between these two top players, and that shouldn't be a surprise. And like I say, Carvajal still a really good player, still a really important member of the dressing room, one of the club captains as well. And he was and also the kind of character he is, the kind of competitor he is. He was never going to sort of give up his place and accept that Trent is first choice. That was never going to happen. So I think it was always going to be a contest, and pretty much on level kind of footing, 50-50 between these two to be in the team. I maybe didn't expect Carvajal to come back in and be starting quite so soon. I thought it might happen in a week or two or maybe a month, but it's already happened. And I think it's just going to depend on the game, on the opponent, on form, on fitness, on all of those factors. But I wouldn't be at all surprised if Carvajal starts lots of games at right back. And then the question, of course, is does Xabi Alonso see Trent as only a right back, or can he see him fitting into the team somewhere else, either further up on the right or in midfield? So far, at least, we haven't seen any signs of that, but I don't think we can rule it out either.
I mean, I wonder if Alexander-Arnold had that in his mind when he's taking this move, or whether he thought it was going to be smooth sailing for him. I mean, he has to know as a player what Dani Carvajal's all about, and that unless Dani Carvajal doesn't come back from the ACL in a proper manner, then that's the only way that he's going to play regularly. Because let's be honest about it, Dani Carvajal, as Alex said, if you don't really watch La Liga as much, then what you're missing out on is one of the best fullbacks in the game for many a year. Yeah, he's in his early 30s now, but I tell you what, you watch him, one-on-one defending, hardly anybody better. Still gets forward, hasn't got the range of passing as Alexander-Arnold, but Alexander-Arnold's range of passing is some of the best you'll see in football. But Dani Carvajal is, without doubt, and has been one of the great fullbacks of his generation. And what Xabi Alonso's doing here, and I think he's sending another message to Alexander-Arnold, is like, I know we have a Liverpool connection here. You've came from Liverpool, I was at Liverpool, that's all very well, but I'm not picking players because we have this affiliation with this great club in England. I'm picking players because I want to keep my job. I want to be successful. And there is no sentiment here. And this was always going to be something for Alexander-Arnold to have to concern himself about. Because I remember when he was making the move, I was thinking, what's going to happen to Dani Carvajal then, when he's fit? And how's this all going to work out? That's how highly I regard this fullback. And as Alex said, maybe this will change. I don't know. But that was an early sign. And Alexander-Arnold didn't have a great game against Osasuna. He didn't have to do much defending. But he didn't have a great game on the ball. But I thought it was very early in the season just to wheel him out the side and get Carvajal in, even though he needs minutes. So there was, when we turned up to cover this game at the weekend against Oviedo and saw the team sheet, we were like, Well, plenty to talk about today because he just whipped those changes in, and when he made them, it was some of the big stars, and I thought that was pretty ballsy early on in his managerial career.
Yeah, Xabi Alonso not caring too much about hierarchy at Real Madrid, it would seem. Alex, thank you so much for being with us. We will have a lot more talk on Real Madrid all season.